YouTube is real work. YouTube is a real job. All right, so I'm driving home after picking up a table here and a water cooler for a new house that I just bought. New to us anyway. And I was listening. I got like I don't know. It's like a 40-minute drive each way. I'm about halfway through the drive back. And I'm listening to YouTube videos and podcasts. Things like that is what I listen to on drives, right? So I'm listening to a YouTube video. I got my little headphone beanie on. And I'm listening to this YouTube video about this guy. And he's talking about his life, right? And what he does for work. And he's saying that he's been doing YouTube and like gig work, basically. So he's been driving for like Amazon Flex, and he's been doing YouTube. And just with like those things alone, just doing YouTube and driving for Flex, he's been able to make more than enough money to afford all his bills, all his, his life and his lifestyle, basically. All his bills are paid. He's able to save money. He makes plenty of money doing these things. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's like maybe 20, 21, right? And he's talking about how like he grew up with YouTube. Since he was like 15, he's been posting YouTube videos. So like his first job was YouTube. His channel blew up, and then he started making revenue off of YouTube. So all he was doing was YouTube. And then that money started drying up. His channel started like declining. And then he's like, you know what? I still need to make money. I still need to pay my bills. And I'm kind of tired of making YouTube videos. Let me get a real job, right? Let me actually work a job. So he decided like, hey, Amazon Flex started being a thing. And then he's like, oh. And if you don't know what Amazon Flex is, it's just like a little... It's basically like Uber for Amazon, kind of, I guess, in a way. He was like, oh, finally, I'm working a real job. I've never had a real job before. But then he posts about it. He makes a video about it. And then everyone is telling him that it's not a real job. So they're like, oh, that's not a real job. You have never worked a real job. Gig work is not real work. YouTube is not real work. And I wholeheartedly disagree. Because first of all, let's look at the definition of a job. What is the definition of a job? It is a paid position. That's the first definition. A paid position or regular employment. A paid position or regular employment. But what is employment and what is a paid position? Right? A paid position or regular employment is a task or a piece of work, especially one that is paid. A task or a piece of work, that is a real definition to me. It is a task or a piece of work, especially one that is paid. So payment is not even a requirement for you to be defined as an employed person, for you to be defined as a person who does work, who has a job. Payment is not even a requirement. It is a task or piece of work, especially one that is paid. Because nowadays, that is what we think about. We say, work, a job, is something that you get paid for. If you do something and you get paid for it, you have a job. That is what we say a job is. That is what we colloquially acknowledge as a job. It is something that you do that you get paid for. That's it. It doesn't get any deeper than that. So, with that in mind, gig work, any kind of gig work that you do, if you are someone out there that is like trying their hand at YouTube, trying their hand at gig work, trying their hand at finding some other way other than a dead end regular 9 to 5, and listen, I say dead end and I know that has negative connotations, but that is the reality. There is a definite end. There is a definite ceiling to what you can do in a regular, average, everyday 9 to 5. If you work at McDonald's, if you work at a grocery store, if you work in retail, there is only so far up the ladder you can climb. 99.9% of the people that work at a grocery store or a retail job or fast food will never be a manager. They will never be anything other, if they stay in that job, in that with that same company. 99% of the people that work there will not ever even be a manager. They will stay as a regular employee their entire stay until they quit or they die. That's the reality. The 1% that do end up, trying to climb the ladder a little bit, become managers, and then 1% of those people that become managers, maybe they will someday become general managers or even owners of their own franchise, in which case they will make a lot more money. So there is some upward mobility there. But for 99% of people working a regular job, you have a ceiling. Like, basically the highest that you are gonna get is maybe manager. Maybe. And then, like, if you try really, really hard, maybe you can move on from there. But there is a very set path and there is a very defined ceiling with very defined payment structure according to that ceiling. So even if you are making like $20 an hour right now at McDonald's, it is brutal work. So I'm saying that it is dead end, but it does not mean that it is easy. It is not easy. It is a job. It is considered a real job. And some people actually, I'll take that back. Some people actually don't even consider working fast food or retail a real job, unless you're like a manager or something. But most people, like I said, will never even get there. That's what I mean. It's not to say that the job is easy. It's not to say that it's not a real job. It is a real job. That's my whole point to this video. But especially if you go outside the norm of like 9 to 5, especially then is what you do not considered a real job. Not considered real work. Especially work, right? When someone says like you're an employee, you don't work. Even if someone's getting like $0 for their work, they are still working. They are still, they might not technically be employed, but they are still making work. That you are still able to make work even if you don't get paid. If you make art, if you make sculptures, if you are a builder that builds things, tables, furniture, things like that, you are still doing work. There is real work happening. You take raw material and you mold it into a usable thing. That is work. And even if you do that work as a hobby, it is still work, even if you're not getting paid for it, because you could get paid for it. Well, it's not because you could get paid for it, but you could get paid for it. And it is work in itself, is what I'm trying to get you to understand. You know, if you're someone that's doing gig work, if you're someone that's out here trying to be an actor, an artist, a YouTuber, YouTube is real work. YouTube is a real job. Gig work is real work. You are putting in real hours, real time. It's not a regular 9 to 5 type of work, but it is work. It is a job. Period. And with that kind of work, there is technically, I feel like there's a ceiling with gig work. I feel like it's really hard to make really good money. Maybe if you're like really like quick with it, maybe if you're like, if you really like buckle down and learn how to work it really good, you can like be really selective about which like gigs you pick up. You know which ones to avoid. You know which ones pay the most for the least amount of work. And so on, right? You get really good at working your apps and you can start to make some like really good money. And there is no technical ceiling. I feel like there is an unspoken, unseen ceiling, but technically there's no ceiling. And if you work for yourself, i.e. stuff like YouTube, like streaming, you have a real job. A lot of people don't consider YouTube a real job, but it is. And I kind of want to prove that this year. I kind of want to prove that you can make real money doing something like YouTube. So I'm going for it. I'm doing it. You should do it too. You should try it out. If it's something you've ever been curious about, try it out. What do you got to lose? You're going to look cringe? Maybe. Who cares? Nobody actually cares, dude. Nobody really cares. Like, people in my family know that I make YouTube videos. I don't think any of them actually really watch. Maybe some do sometimes. All my friends know that I make YouTube videos, but they don't really know. Like, every time I bring it up, so, you know, maybe a few of them might know that I'm doing that. But for the most part, they don't know and they don't care. Like, nobody actually cares. And that's not a negative thing. That's just a fact. And all that means really is that you shouldn't care either. You shouldn't be worried about what anyone might think. You shouldn't be embarrassed. Just do it. Like, I'm not embarrassed. I've had a lot of like life experiences and I've done things like I've done theater. I've done other things where I get exposed, you know, in a public setting and I have to like kind of make a fool of myself a little bit, and it's fine. It's fine. On the other side of that is fine. You're okay. You lived. You find out there was nothing to be nervous about. And that, you know, I think for people like me, people that try to find other ways, because like what? It's been I think almost 5 years since I had a real job, right? Since I've had a regular 9 to 5 job. It's been almost 5 years. I used to work at Trader Joe's. That was the last like 9 to 5 type job I had. And then I started trying to start my own business. I started with lawn mowing, like lawn care company. That didn't actually end up going anywhere. But initially I was starting to make some pretty good money. But then, I don't know. It's not something that I wanted to manage. It is something that I still think about and still can, I believe, fall back on. If I still want to do something like that, I can do that. I do a lot of DIY stuff, so I can always fall back on like handyman type skills, automotive repair type skills. I have that. I'm very confident in those skills. I recently got hired on as a substitute teacher. And a lot of people would call substitute teaching not even a real job. But bro, if you start a YouTube channel and then you grow that YouTube channel and it actually starts bringing in revenue, what you are doing is essentially running your own little business underneath YouTube, which is underneath Google. So you are technically, if you have, you know, it doesn't even have, like I said, it doesn't even require payment. Just having a YouTube channel and regularly doing the work of making videos, even if you're not getting paid, even if you're not yet monetized, like you're technically a Google employee because you're making content for Google, for YouTube, you know? So technically, you are employed. Technically. But, you know, if you're really concentrated on the getting paid part, you can have eventually a really successful YouTube channel. And guess what? There's no ceiling there. When you start your own business, when you start your own business, which is a YouTube channel would be your own business, like I said, you have no ceilings. That's what I find the most appealing about like starting your own business or starting your own YouTube channel, things like that. You have suddenly removed all ceilings and technically all like, you know, security, all job security. But like, what job is really actually secure? You could get fired at any second. It's in the contract when you sign your paperwork. When you get hired on, they can fire you without warning. They don't have to give you any kind of notice for any reason. They can fire you. That's what it is. I mean, in a lot of states, they can't fire you for like any reason. You know, if it's like discrimination or something, then it's legal. But for pretty much technically any technicality, any other little reason, they can be like, oh, we need to downsize, and boom, you're cut, you're out. So like, job security is kind of a myth, a little bit. Whatever you do, reselling, OF, model, a streamer, even a hobby can be real work. I'm just saying, making YouTube videos is only a hobby until you start getting paid and until your channel starts doing really well, and then you start getting paid really well. Then suddenly it's a little bit more than a hobby. I'm just saying. I'm gonna drive back home from picking up a couple used items that I'm gonna put in my house. I could have just been listening to YouTube videos. I could have just been listening to a podcast. Instead, I created work. I made my commute back home into a potentially money-generating thing that could end up paying off even in a monetary sense in the future. I'm just saying, the money can get real. That's all.